Welcome to Friday night's video. Tonight we're going to talk about a couple things as far as learning is concerned. We talked some about practice. I haven't really gone into a huge video about practice, but like basic practice can be a little bit different because with basic practice or just trying to keep up your chops or whatever, that you might be practicing your licks and runs and things like that. But a lot of times I have my own set practice where I practice when I'm working on my speed, my dexterity, my accuracy, my clarity, and things like that, then I have a daily program that I go through that. Now, the deal with that is that that's not a new song that I have to remember to be and perfect playing. So this is a key point at the next stage in your development. If you've got this far in the video series that you've watched the last video and it was basically about working on you. So now that you've really taken a little bit of a better look at yourself and really thought about that as the next big stumbling block, that the next thing for you to look at is actual learning. Get on the internet and actually look up learning. Look up about learning what the concept is, techniques and things like that. Not all of them will work for you. You can get lost in that research. So just try not to. Try to really understand the basic concept and maybe dig in a little bit about how you learn, just to get, a pretty good understanding of it. And then, branch out as far as you want. You don't need to make it a lifetime study if you don't want to. But, I mean, it basically is anyway. Some people never think about it at all. Actually, how do you learn? So it's a next big thing for you to do. It's part of this next subject we're talking about, a huge part of it. Because the next thing we want to talk about is if you've studied all the stuff I've pointed out to you and you've watched all the videos in this series and you've got to the last video that you probably are the next stumbling block, that you come to this next thing, which is, what is practice, as compared to learning a song, and which can be practice also, or keeping up on the song or keeping up on your chops. So the aspect that I wanted to address in this is the difference between practice and learning a different song, because I've got some set routines I do for practice and I've laid it out in one of the previous videos about practice, but basically that is basically trying to keep up with my speed or build it, my dexterity or build it, my accuracy, my clarity, and things like that, so that I can stay in shape, or get better, just like going to the gym. So the thing that we wanted to address next is more along the lines of each new composition or each new creation that you create. Now, this can have a very subtle link to improvisations, because improvisations are normally not practiced. They're just on the fly. So they can have their own kind of niche here. But the understanding is this: it's a very simple concept that it's like learning a bicycle. You learn to ride a bicycle, and you might not ride a bike for a while, but you know what the deal is there, and you can jump on the bicycle and ride around the block, right? And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more fluid you're going to get at it, and more fluent at it you're going to get because of repetition. Now, every time you start a new piece and a new composition or a new piece you're learning or anything like that, it's like getting on the bicycle or improvisations and riding on unknown terrain. Because you basically understand how a bike works, that doesn't mean that you're going to be fluent on that track. I mean, if you ride that track once, you might be going this fast, through the hills and jumps and all that stuff. You go through it 100 times. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the key concept to get in your head. Because the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And every trail is like a new composition, improvisation, and a new song you're learning. Improvisations, a lot of times you'll get licks and tricks that you use a lot. Every now and then you throw something in experimental, just messing around, trying to flavor it up. But a whole lot of it, you've got a pretty good understanding of fundamental knowledge of most of the things you throw in there anyway. So that's a really good way to look at it. That way, you can understand the simple concept like muscle memory. That You know, if I do a lick like this, the more I do that, the more fluent, correct, accurate, and fast I'm going to be able to do it, correct? So each composition or each song you learn is going to have aspects, more than likely, that are, you know, things that you've used in other songs. But that doesn't mean that it's the exact way as the other song. And on top of it, it's a different progression. It's a different trail that changes differently. Even though you might be familiar with that trail, that its exact application, it might be just a different enough to cause you to have to slow down to really work on your accuracy and your clarity of the performance so it's performed well. So muscle memory is a huge aspect there, because as you learn something, you get frustrated that you really want to. It's just like when you're first starting learning, sometimes you go back and really practice it slow, accurate, in time, pressing hard, so every note is clear and accurate, and build fluidity in your performance, just like getting faster on that bike track. Does that make sense that you're unfamiliar with? And it's that simple. And pretty soon that you start to build muscle memory, so that every time you pick up the guitar to go play that again, that you, if you're really working on bettering yourself and better your performance, that you push yourself a little bit more and get better. Maybe a little bit faster, maybe da 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 da. Does that make sense? Until you get up to the tempo that you're supposed to be with the quality of the performance that you expect from yourself. So that's a huge concept to get in your head, because when you start doing that, it can be frustrating because you think that you're a professional bike rider, you know, and you have to go back and, you know, play this piece like you're like some kind of beginning guitar player that's never seen a guitar before, but you approach it the same way. Now, sometimes as you get better, you pick up the guitar and see a piece or start composing and fairly rapidly get through that phase. One person might go down that new trail a little bit like this, whereas you go down that trail maybe a little bit like this, that you're being cautious and you're making sure about your clarity and your performance and your fluidity and the smoothness of your ride, and da 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 da, that on and on and on until you're just flying down the trail. Does that make sense? Loop-de-loops all over the dang place. And it's that simple. You know, because it really is, because I find like I've been working on a piece here lately, and it's been like, you know, it's been slow going. You know, it really has. But it, you know, it's, you know, you just got to remember, keep plugging away on it, keep plugging away, and slowly build that speed and fluidity until it's up to speed that you want it to be and moving at the tempo you want it to be. But it's a huge lesson and a huge topic, though, that whole combined topic. That way, that when you pick up the guitar and you're trying to learn this new piece or you're trying to compose, that, you know, first of all, the learning concept and really kind of thinking about that, maybe researching it a little bit, and then the next concept of, you know, what is muscle memory? You know, what does that mean to me? How do I start out slowly on this trail? How fast can I go to where I'm achieving the performance and the quality that I want until I'm flying down the trail at the tempo I want to be flying at? Does that make sense? With the fluidity and the grace that I want in my performance? Does that make, and the sound? So it's a huge thing to really sit down and think about, so that you apply it every time you start a new piece, because it's the same way whether you can be composing something and have to, I mean, I don't know how many times I've composed something and it's like, it's really cool, but I can't play it. I mean, I try to pick up my guitar and play the thing and I can't play it, bro. It's going to take me maybe a week or something really practicing it until I can play it fluently, because I can write it, I understand the musical concepts, but being able to play it fluently is going to take practice, and I'm going to have to go back to slowly riding it until I build up speed and fluidity and grace until, and the sound of it, so it sounds good, until I'm flying along on it. And it's that simple. Try to keep it that simple in your head so it doesn't get real confusing. The concept of really studying into muscle memory and learning and ways to learn, that can be a huge concept. You can spend the whole rest of your life studying that. So take it as far as you want. But this simple concept that I'm trying to outlay here is very important for you when you're approaching that. That way you kind of understand the difference between your practice to keep up your dexterity, your accuracy, your clarity, and your speed, and things like that, you know, and your fluidity moving around the fretboard is can be a little bit different because you can't practice everything, you know, every day for an hour a day. It's just not possible. So you got to set up some kind of routine, practicing certain types of things, you know, and making sure you keep up on your chops and keep up with your strength and dexterity and all those things in your practice, you know, which should be a daily thing. But this other thing is a little bit different. That way that you approach it the same way each time, you'll have better results. Because as you start to work on it and as you start to develop yourself into it, that you understand what's happening there and why you're doing it. And that way you don't feel like every time you start a new composition or you write something you're not really good at doing that you have to work on, or you're learning a new song that you're not very good at doing, and it's like, well, I'm going to have to practice this. And you feel like it'd be some kind of beginner guitarist messing around with this little lick or run or this chord progression or whatever you're doing, that you don't get frustrated at that and think, well, you know, dot, 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 and start pounding yourself. You do the reverse of that and start pushing yourself up. No, I got to start out with this slow. It's got to be accurate. It's got to be clear. It's got to be fluent. It's got to be graceful. It's got to sound good. And I'll slowly build up speed as I get better and better at riding this trail. I'll start out slow, start building up speed as I get more familiar with it until I'm flying down that track just the way that's supposed to be, the way I wanted it, or the way the song was written. Does that make sense? And it's that simple. Keep it that simple in your head, because it takes time, each new time, every time you do that, for you to gain muscle memory of that. And it's a little bit different than that bike trail, because you might not have the exact movements. On that piece that you're writing, you more than likely will have the exact movements. And it gets really complicated. It's not just about, you know, the actual notes that you're doing. It's how you're holding your hand, how you might be positioning yourself, how you're doing your, I mean, everything that you do throughout the entire movement of the whole piece is going to, you're trying to create muscle memory, so the more times you play it, that you go through it, that everything you did in doing it, that your brain starts to remember that move that you did. And I know I'm moving around all over the place, look all funky and weird all over the place, but it's an exaggeration. Maybe not exactly, depending on what you're doing, you know. I don't know, bro, but you understand the concept, because your brain will start to remember that, and it'll start to get more fluent and quicker at it as you progress. And just focus on the basics of it, the fundamental, most important issues of your fluidity, your clarity, you know, your performance, the sound of it, your accuracy, you know, and the gracefulness of it, you know, and moving around, and, you know, focus on those things, and that you're, you know, got a good, strong performance, strengthen your hand and strengthen your performance, and it sounds good, and everything's done well, and just slowly have patience. It's a huge thing, because I still have gotten frustrated with that, because I'll sit around, I mean, I'll get some really wild lick going, and it's like, in a week, you know, I'm still fluddling around with it, you know, and I'm going, oh, dude, it's going to, like, take the rest of my life to get this. But, you know, it's simple things, even something like sweep picking, that the basic concept, let's say I'm using that as an example, but I create some other sweep picking thing that I do, and all of a sudden I have to create that muscle memory and the fluidity and the dexterity, and, you know, all those concepts have to combine again to make that happen. And it's a normal process for it to happen, but for you to understand it, so that you approach it that way, so that you approach it with the intent of approaching it that way, so that you have every understanding of the intent that you have, and follow through with it and have patience with it, that you performances, the things you do are going to be so much better in quality, and your performances will be so much better from the effort in understanding the concepts that I'm speaking about here, so that you take your time and do it properly, so that it is, you know, a job done well always becomes a job well done. So this subject can get really deep, so I do suggest you dig around on the internet about, you know, muscle memory, learning, physical memory, all these things we've been trying to talk about, you know, and investigate a little bit, because at this point, after the last video about you, that you know, you get into that, and then you start, you know, you're ready to rock and roll, bro. And so here you are. So as you start in here and you really are going to town, because by this point you really should be flying, and up to this video, now you're studying a little bit about learning, muscle memory, you know, how you go about approaching that so that you can approach the whole composition and performing the composition that you're writing, or the song you're trying to play and learn, or your improvisations. Improvisations are a huge topic, because I always say it's the same kind of concept. So improvise, practice your licks and runs, and anything you're not real familiar with, don't perform it unless you're really comfortable with it and do it well, you know, and, you know, add it to your lick factory for licks and runs, or moves, or articulations, or things that you do. Do something more simple that sounds of quality and performed well, rather than something performed badly, you know, that was fast. Does that make sense? So it's a huge concept. So I hope that this introduces you to that concept in a way that somebody actually spoke it to you. It wasn't something, well, I already got that, I understand that. That somebody actually told it to you, so that concept would actually laid in front of you, so that you can sit down and contemplate it and really do some research on it and think about how you approach that. How do you approach that whole situation? Are you doing it well? Are you doing a good job with your approach and, you know, your learning routine, and how you go about learning, and how you go about perfecting your performance and things like that? How do you go about doing that to get there? You know, and it's like, how long do you practice? You know, you practice, you know, you got this little lick, you know. How long do you practice that until it's right? You just keep practicing until it's right, bro, until you got it to where it sounds smooth, accurate, clear, you know, it's, you know, fluent, and it's graceful, and it sounds well performed in quality. You know, that's when you stop practicing it, because then you got it. And you know when you got it. If you can't tell when you know when you got it, and you're questioning it, well, I don't know who you're going to ask. You know, if you're happy with it, it's done, bro. And, well, I mean, unless you're, you know, you're practicing to be, you know, Bach or Beethoven or some kind of classical pianist, and you want to call your music teacher and he can beat you over the head with a stick for an hour until you're better than that, well, that's cool, bro. I got no problem with that. Not all of you might be there. Does that make sense? So I hope that this video really opens that door to you to really looking at that, so that you basically take the last video and this video combined and really work on that concept of you and your learning and your muscle memory, and how you approach the learning, and how you approach performance and bettering your performance and all those things. These two videos are really combined in that area. And I think if you spend some time with these last two videos, that your whole ability, your whole self, and how you approach everything about yourself, as far as relating it to music and everything related to music and yourself, is going to improve. And you will be that much better of an individual, a performer, and a musician. So I hope this video really kind of laid that out as something you should really get into and really sit down and think about as an individual and as a musician. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next Friday on the next video. Peace, hope, love. I certainly hope you enjoyed the series so far. See you in the next video.